My name is Don Easley, Victoria, Texas. I was deducted into the Army July the 8th, 1943. I'm from Victoria, Texas. I lived on a farm, and up until I was about 16 or 17. And then we moved to Taftner, Texas. From Taftner, Texas, that's when I left, was drafted into the U.S. Army. We were actually raised in Inez, Texas. And we had one sister. I had one sister and 6 brothers. Well, I took my basic training in Fort Bragg, North Carolina, and that's where they trained us very well. And they trained me in communications. And I was attached to artillery doing my basic training. So that's what I was trained for. Most of the soldiers that I was trained with were replacement, and they were getting us ready for the invasion of the Germans. See that. They were training us for that. They had us in excellent condition because we had to march anywhere. We marched anywhere from 10 to 20 miles a day, every day, and with a 40-pound pack on our back. And we were issued carbines. That's what the artillery used, was carbines. That was our rifle. And we were well trained with that carbine and practiced shooting it at Fort Bragg. I left Fort Bragg in January of 1944. We went to New York, and we went to Camp Shanks in New York, and we stayed there about maybe a month or two. And from there, January the 17th, 1944, we boarded the Queen Mary. At that time, the Queen Mary was a troop carrier, and we shipped over to Wales, which is in Great Britain. From Wales, we went to Cardiff, Wales, and that's where we stayed until General Eisenhower ordered the invasion for June the 6th, 1944. Well, we were on the ship about 9 days, something like that. They didn't go straight. They zigzagged all the way over because of German submarines. It had something to do with not getting bombed by them, I guess. We boarded landing crafts early in the morning. I'd say around 2 o'clock, somewhere along in there. And there were just thousands of them. I mean, and we took off, and they made me a temporary corporal in charge of that particular carrier that I was on. And I was up in the front of the boat. You were in a daze because I was only barely 18 years old, and scared to death. Hell, I didn't know whether I was going to last 5 minutes or a day. But we came under fire the full 5 days that we were floating out there, getting ready to land. But I do know that there was fighter planes, bombers, aircraft carriers, all types of ships that has those big guns on them, and they were just all around us. And of course, the Germans didn't have. We were lucky the Germans didn't have that much firepower in the air. They didn't have that many planes like we had. We had a lot of planes. Just constantly, the British and the Americans were flying those bombers over us, and dropping them on that beach that we took over. We took over a beach, and we were there 24 days before we secured it. We finally secured it. Yeah, we like to lost it. Well, we set up, the guns were set up, and then I set up my communication situation. And of course, we didn't have very far to go because we didn't have much of a beach, because the Germans were still holding us until we finally whipped them. We broke out July the 24th, 1944, and chased the Germans all the way to Paris. And on the way, our tanks and our infantry chased those Germans all the way, and they had Germans everywhere on the side of the road. As we followed them, we followed the infantry with our. We didn't have to set up. We didn't have to set our guns up again until we passed Paris. We went through the Eiffel Tower and went to the other side of Paris. Then we set up our guns and started firing again, because we was chasing them. Those guys, the Germans, never did stop. I mean, they couldn't stop long enough to fight us, because we were killing them all the way over, all the way to Paris. In them days, we had what they call switchboards, and the switchboard, we laid lines up to the front line, and we had two of us that were switchboard operators, and we operated the switchboard 24 hours a day, and we communicated with the front line. We had a second lieutenant that was in charge of A Battery, and all of that information would go to him, not me. It'd go to this lieutenant, and he directed the fire. He directed the fire to the front line. All we did was furnish the communications to the lieutenant, and he did the directing. He did the direction, and then we had four guns, and they would fire 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and if there was a German tank at a certain place, well, we would fire at that tank. That was the way we operated. Every battery had 4 guns, 4 big old guns, 155 Howisters, and they were pulled by a weapons carrier. They were very accurate. The extreme range was 19 miles. We had what they call we had a Piper Cub, airplane, and the lieutenant, our lieutenant would be in that plane, and he would spot things and call it back to our guns. We lost a lieutenant during the war. He was shot down. So we went through three. We had 3 of them. We had 3 of them in A Battery. We lost 2 of them. Got shot down. It was very dangerous. The Germans had a troop train full of soldiers, and they were going through a tunnel, and we were told to fire our guns, and at the other end and stop them. And what we did, and we blowed that damn line, we blowed that tunnel up at the exits, and it stopped them. They couldn't get out. We were actually cited for that by Eisenhower. So that's how accurate we were. The Battle of the Bulge was a little bit scary because the Germans were after our damn tail pretty good, trying to stop us from firing at them. And they used to, at night, they'd fly over us and drop flares. And those flares would light up our outfit, and they would come along and try to bomb us, you know, try to knock those guns out. But anyway, they didn't succeed because we usually shot them down with machine guns. They were very capable of shooting an airplane, and we shot a few of them down. Knocked out a lot of their firepower with those big old guns we had. We knocked out the tanks, and we killed a lot of their soldiers because they had a lot of soldiers for the battle. That was their last go around, really, and they put every soldier they had in that Battle of the Bulge. The first two infantry divisions were whipped, so they sent in a third one, and they were rookies from the United States, and they were fresh. They came in and they whipped the Germans, and they saved us because we had been given orders whenever that second infantry division was whipped. We were given orders to destroy all of our equipment and retreat if the Germans broke through. And fortunately, it didn't happen. So when they sent those green guys in there, hell, they whipped them because they were young and more spunky. But anyway, it was some experience. And at that particular time, the snow was like 5 or 6 feet deep, and it was very cold. The ground was so hard that you could drive your tanks over it and it didn't hurt nothing. It was the coldest winter that they could remember. They called it the winter of '44, and it was terrible. I usually wore 2 pair of pants, 2 shirts, 2 pair of socks. Always had 2 pair of socks on, and I changed my socks daily. If you didn't, a lot of those soldiers, their toes froze off. You know, they lost their toes, and I took care of myself as well as possible because we're looking at 0 weather, and that was one of the ailments that the Germans had on their side, was that bad weather. I had the same uniform up until the all the way through the Battle of the Bulge, and then whenever we finally won and whipped them, and we pulled back about 3 miles back and changed those barrels out, and we were ordered to take all our clothes off and pile them in a pile, which we did. And we had worn them for 3 months. They took and burnt those uniforms, burnt them up. And we all took a shower. They had set up a temporary shower. We took a shower. That was the first shower we had. And they issued us new clothes. Well, we didn't have much food. We had K rations. And if you know what K ration is, it's not very good, not very appetizing. and a lot of it had a can of hash in it, and you open that and ate that hash. And I know I was in a foxhole guarding something, guarding the soldiers or something. I mean the Germans. And I ate a can of that hash, and I got ptomaine poison from it. And I got deathly sick while I was in that foxhole, and I couldn't get out. But I finally got out and went to a medic, and a medic gave me something and got me okay. But we didn't have much food, and those K rations all had a chocolate bar about that long, and we ate that chocolate bar that kept us alive. But we didn't have much food. We didn't have any hot food. Well, during the Battle of the Bulge, the general McCutcheon or something like that, he said nuts ain't gonna surrender. Well, the Germans had them surrounded. Okay, well, Patton, they called on Patton to go get him out. So Patton went around to the Rhine, went to the Rhine River, and we supported Patton. We went with him with our guns. We crossed the Rhine River in southern France. That's the other battle I was in. And we crossed the Rhine River on platoons. And that's a little scary too. And we pulled all those guns across those platoons, and we went with Patton and helped get this guy out of that trap. So that was another battle we were in. That Rhine River was wide, but see, we have the engineers put it together. Had a battery of engineers there also. That was the only way you could cross the river. Southern France, that's where we went across the river. In France, the Germans took over a little old town, somewhere around Paris. I think it was on the other side. We destroyed that town with our guns. After we destroyed it and the Germans left, we went through that town and we stopped there and we bivouacked and set up our guns. And I did a little exploring. And I went into a house that was shelled, and there was a shelf. You know how people put knickknacks on the shelf? Everything on that shelf was destroyed, laying down on the floor, except for one thing. The Virgin Mary was sitting up on that shelf and was not destroyed. It had a little chip in it. Okay, I picked that up and I got it. I got it at home right now. Now that I thought was miraculous. That was not destroyed. We was very lucky. We didn't lose very many people. I'd say maybe 3 or 4 at the most. Very, very lucky, because we wasn't on the front line. We were behind it. So that's what saved us. And we had a lot of close calls. We were shelled a whole lot. We were bombed a whole lot. And the Germans had a big old gun set up on a flatbed train, a boxcar. And they found out about where we were located, and they were firing on us. And my truck was, I had just a regular little old truck, I don't know what you call it.
Okay.
That we carried our communication equipment, BD-72s and the BD-71s. We carried them on there, and whenever you set them, those things about about 3 foot wide and about 2 foot deep, and we set them on top, one on top of the other. And it takes two of them to get our communications. And in this particular case, me and my buddy, we found some logs, and we put these logs on where the front line is. We put two of them about this high, and some of them over here, and they were firing on us. And I laid down longwise, and he did too. And they got a direct hit about 30 feet from where I was, and hit my truck and destroyed it. That truck was destroyed, and both of my BD-71s and 72s were destroyed, so I had to repair them. But I couldn't. That particular shell was, that particular gun. That was a big shell, because it blinded me for about 30 minutes till I couldn't even see. But I didn't get hurt. I didn't get hit. We were very lucky. But we did lose some people during that episode. Well, the gun that they were noted for was the 88, and that gun, that shell, their projection was sort of a straight. But they were noted for 88s, and that's what they fired on us. They were short range. They weren't real long range. And they fired them on toward us a lot of times. And I know one particular case, standing behind a tree, and they fired, one of them landed real close to me, but it was a dud. It didn't go off. So, like I say, God was watching me.
And it would have killed you had it gone off?
It might have, yes, sir. But it didn't go off. And I kind of left the scene.
That's smart.
Yeah, but that's why I say we had a lot of close calls. We were strafed a whole lot by the Germans also. And you know how you get strafed. The bullets are going this way, and you don't lay crossways. You lay this way, and you just lay there and hope hope one of them don't hit you. I know one time we were going to the next position, and a German plane came over and started strafing our outfit, and we stopped. Everybody stopped, and I run out into the tree out in the forest, got behind a damn tree. But you learn to take care of yourself as best possible. I wasn't no hero, but it's. I had a lot of close calls. I can't remember all of them, but it. Yeah, I know. I remember. You see a lot of things. You just can't imagine the things that you see. The ordinary person that hadn't been in a war. I watched an American fighter plane and a German fighter plane fighting, dog fight, in the air, and the American won. He shot him down. We had a German pilot that got shot down near where my switchboard was. He got shot in the head with anti-aircraft bullets. Anyway, he crashed, and I went over there, and the 2 or 3 other soldiers run over there, and I took a P-38. They wear P-38. That's what they use, pistols. And I took that pistol off of him. And the other ones, the rest of them took his boots and all that stuff. But I still got that P-38 at home. The switchboard, I don't know if you remember, it's something similar to they used to have years ago, you know, when the phone company had switchboards. It was something like them. You plug them in. It had a little deal that whenever they rang us, that thing would flop down, and then we answered it. We had a deal but when you get ready when you ring, say if you want to ring gun 1, 2, or 3, or 4, or the lieutenant, you have they all had a number, and we plugged them in, and then we rang it. On my truck had a deal on the back that it rolled just like they do now.
Like wire?
A wire, and we would take that, we'd hook that up to the switchboard, and then take off to the front line and unroll it all the way to the front line. And that was one of my jobs. I had to do that, and of course that was a little bit dangerous. We rolled it, and then the infantry would have a man that would hook it up to his instrument. He would call in shots and stuff like that. They had a radio. They radioed down somebody, A battery or B battery, or they had a way of directing it. You don't get a Silver Star unless you have 5 battles or more. So that's the reason I have that Silver Star. Because I was in 5 battles, 5 major battles. That's what they call 5 major battles. So that's what the Silver Star is all about. I was in actual combat 11 months, and I was in the service I think it was about 2.5 years, something like that. I didn't meet him personally, but I saw Patton 2 times, and he stood up in a Jeep, and he always had those two ivory pistols. In fact, I was there close to him whenever he was on that bridge where he threw that donkey off the bridge. I was there. So I was there at that time. That movie, The Longest Day, most of that stuff I was involved in. Patton was a brave soldier. He was very brave. He was usually in the front tank because he made the statement that he would probably not leave that country alive. And sure enough, he didn't. He was killed in a wreck. You know, but when the war ended, we was in Prague, Czechoslovakia. That's where we were. And we spent the night in a brewery. So we drank beer all night. And you know, Patton made a statement that he told Eisenhower, said, let's keep on going and get Russia. And Eisenhower wouldn't let him. Said no. But anyway, I drank vodka that next morning after the war was over. I drank vodka with the Russians. We met. We would talk to them and everything. After the war, I got in my orphan carrier, and we went up to the birch garden, you know, where Hitler's hideout was. I went up there and saw that. I saw his eagle nest up. He had a big plate glass, and of course that was all busted because it had been bombed. But I went up there and saw that. But that was after the war. You know that stadium that he's got? He made all his speeches. I saw that. And I also saw the warehouse, and I saw the equipment that he used to gas those people. I saw that. And I went in that warehouse, and you could tell where the bodies were there. They had stuff all. They had put stuff all over it. That was a horrible, horrible situation. But I saw the gas chamber that they used, where they gassed them. All I can say is that I was a very lucky soldier. I was very young, but well trained and in excellent physical condition. That's what saved me, because of that bad weather. If they hadn't trained me as well as he did, I probably wouldn't have made it. But we lost 2 or 3 guys from pneumonia. They just died. They couldn't handle it. Other than that, I was just a lucky person to get back alive, because I did have a lot of bad experiences. And we were under fire constantly of some kind. Oh yeah, the other thing is, you know, the Germans at that time, they were working on the atomic bomb. Hitler was. He had some scientists, pretty smart scientists, and the only thing they came up with was a buzz bomb. And they sent that buzz bomb out, and we had several of them drop close to our outfit. See, those buzz bombs weren't accurate. They were operated by gasoline, and when the gasoline ran out, then they would go down, and that's how they regulated them. So they used them over in England a whole lot. So I went through the buzz bomb situation also, which was a little bit scary. I don't know, there's quite a bit of things that I went through that I can't even remember anymore, but we had a good outfit, and we were very, very well trained. The soldiers operating those guns were they were an outfit out of Pennsylvania. They were in the National Guard, so they were all older people. I was the youngest one there. They called me Tex, and I was the youngest one there. I was only 18. All the rest of them were in their 30s. And of course, that was old then. But those guys were all from the National Guard, and they were good. So, and then during the war, just before the war ended, we was in Nuremberg guarding the SS troopers, because they were still active. And We were told to shoot them if they came down this particular road we were guarding. And I was on guard duty one night, and it was two of them coming down the ditch, and I hollered at them to halt, and they didn't halt. So I shot them. I shot one of them. I hit them, and then they took off running. So the next morning we went looking for them. We found blood, but we never did find them. But that was just damn near before the war ended. Just a few days. We came back to New York from La Havre, France, and we came back on a Liberty ship. Those little old ships, and they were dangerous. And we was in two major storms on the way back, and that scared hell out of me. We didn't know whether we were going to make it or not, but we finally did make it. And when we got back, that Liberty ship was split in the front from the waves because it wasn't made very good. Anyway, we got back to New York on January the 3rd, I believe, 1945. And from New York, we went to back to Texas, of course. They shipped over wherever you were close. When they shipped us to the closest place to where you live, and I wound up in Tyler, Texas, and that's where they tried to make me. They wanted me to rejoin. I told them, no way, Jose. I said, just let me go home. So, in them days, you didn't make much money. All the money I made was $90 a month. And of course, they gave you food and clothes and all that stuff. I was discharged December the 6th, the 7th or 8th, or somewhere along in there.
Okay.
1945. And I went home. But anyway, that I was, as you know, when you go through all that kind of stuff, you're uptight all the time. And when I got back, about a month, I guess I was at home about a month, and I had a nervous breakdown. I just went to pieces. And that's what's happening to the soldiers now that been over there. They sent me to the Naval Hospital in Corpus, and I stayed there about 2 weeks. And they treated me and all that kind of stuff. And the lieutenant, the doctor, was a lieutenant colonel, told me, he said, look, we're going to discharge you. You go home and you start drinking and have a good time and forget all this stuff. And that's what I did. I was a Scotch drinker, and I drank the hell out of that Scotch. And that's when that's when the Pirates were playing. Pirates were here, and they were playing football in them days. And that's where I met my wife, Margaret. I got okay. But it does happen to you. I don't know why, but it does. All of a sudden you go to pieces. But I mean, I could lay there and you could you feel those Germans shooting at you and all that stuff, and it comes back. It comes back. I wasn't 21 years old when I was discharged, and I remember going into a beer joint in Victoria. I went in there with my brother-in-law and ordered a beer, and they wouldn't sell me a beer because I wasn't 21. And I thought that was funny. I said, my God, fought a whole damn war, and I come back and they wouldn't even sell me a beer.